It is the Dirty Laundry Game Worn Hockey Podcast. We're now in double digits, episode number 10. Honestly, for a while, I didn't know if we'd actually get there, if people would like it enough to keep it going, but at least getting a decent reception. Can't complain. People seem to enjoy it. I get good comments, and with the help of guys like you joining me this evening, Paul Rank, Dan Day, and Wade Hampton. Dan Day, the newest of the guys joining the podcast. Paul and Wade are old hats to this now. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, man, what's up?
Evening.
It is another fun-filled day of looking at game-worn jerseys online like we all do every day, seeing what people have got, seeing what's being sold, all those kind of things. And one of the debates that have hit, Reddit have hit, the Facebook groups are the terms of the jerseys, things like game issued, team issued, game worn, bench worn, all those. And I just want to kind of break those down and get your guys' thoughts. I mean, again, we don't have to come up with this is the solid thing, but at least give people an understanding of what you see where may matter, or some teams that just don't give a damn, because I've seen some of that too. I guess we'll start with the easiest one, game worn. I don't think that needs much defining. Game worn was worn in a game or more. Shows where. We hope a certificate that comes along with it is provable by photo matching, hopefully LOA. I mean, several different options, but I don't think there's much wiggle room to that one. What about you guys?
No, game worn means game worn.
I wish the rest of these were that easy, because we know it's not going to be, but game worn, at least, yes, has been worn. And I guess since it is that time of year right now, I've watched, actually caught part of a game last night, preseason. Does that matter at all? Or is game worn,
but it's preseason worn. I mean, it's not during a regular NHL game. I mean, so, the interesting factor on that is some teams carry them over from preseason into the regular season. We've seen that in the past with the Blues and other teams, where the set one jerseys are actually worn during preseason and become the set one jerseys, or they're already tagged set one when they're wearing them in preseason.
Paul, is that how San Jose does them, or they mix them up a little bit?
They mix it up somewhat. The jerseys, if the kids play in the prospect tournament, which they usually wear the same jerseys that they're going to wear in the preseason. This year they did not. For the prospect tournament this year, they wore the older prime green besides the new teal, whatever they're calling it, the wave or whatever. If a kid plays just in preseason, they tag that as training camp and not occasionally it's marked as game worn, but they try to distinguish if it was training camp, i.e. preseason, or regular season, and they'll get carried over. I honestly don't know what's going to happen with the jerseys from this preseason for the Sharks, if they're going to be patched for the games in Prague and brought over there, or if it's going to be a brand new set of
if those games happen.
Yeah, that's the other big question there. So it's so yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I haven't heard from anyone what they're planning, for if they're patching the preseason gamers, if it's a whole new set, or like Wade said, if they're even going. So.
And I remember, at least in, I think it was the first year or second year of Vegas, I got a hold of a couple of those, and they were marked for preseason / training camp. But most of those, I think, were guys that weren't going on to be on the regular season roster anyway. It wasn't clear, and I'd have to go look back at Mygrave's documentation on others, if all of those were done that way, or if just some, if rostered players, it was just preseason forward. So some of those, yeah, it may be a mix depending on the player too.
Yeah, yeah, I think Vegas, that first year was unusual when they started selling the preseason ones, because it wasn't clear which ones were worn in the preseason from, all the guys who did not make the main club, went back to Chicago.
So I'd say we'll call, again, preseason, little iffy, but most case in at least most case, teams seem to carry them over or check with your team. Say, hey, do you guys continue to use these? Last year we ran into an issue. Wade and I did with the Blues. Of course, that was a switch over from the regular Adidas to the Prime Green. So they blew out a bunch of their regular ones, wore them in preseason, sold them at the first game, but were not tagged with anything. No set tags, no markings of any kind. Look like, if there was no wear on them, I mean, look like just an authentic from the team store. So that got into some messy things of, if anybody wants to sell these later, you better have photo matches to back them up, because otherwise you don't. There's no proof to show what it is.
It just became an authentic more or less, because there's, besides your word of, hey, I bought this at the, it's like they gave you a receipt or gave you anything that said. So beyond you saying, oh yeah, I bought this one, it's preseason worn. I mean, pretty hard to distinguish, especially going into what we're talking about with people stripping jerseys and things like that.
We'll touch on that more shortly if we don't run too late here. So now, we'll stay on the worn side of things. So now, how about bench worn? Most of what we see with that, I think almost all we see that, are backup goalies. Can you guys recall many cases of a non-goalie jersey being marked as bench worn?
No, usually plays at least one shift.
Did you do see some guys that'll take warm-ups and leave, but I wouldn't consider that bench worn, because odds are they're going to play in another game later, and it's worn.
Bench worn wouldn't have any wear on it. Should be clean.
Correct. So bench worn should be exclusively for goalie backups.
I'd agree with that,
because I've seen that again.
Bench worn was worn during an NHL game on the bench.
And it may be a call-up goaltender. And I've seen that a few times where, Dan, like when you and I were picking up McKenna jerseys, is he may have been called up to NHL. He didn't play, but he was on the bench, and that's how the jersey's marked.
Yeah, my Jeff Lurg is that way from Grand Rapids. He never played, but he was up there. Did the warm-ups, but he wore it on the bench. It's not a game worn jersey. It's bench worn or warm-up worn, whatever you want to label it as.
And I think some teams are particular with that and mark them that way, and some teams don't care. They may mark it on their LOAs as game worn or issued. So it's again, with all of this, I don't care what it is, even if it says game worn, do your research. Back up whatever your certificate is, back it up with photos. The nice thing is going to the NHL, the score sheets, you can look back and look at the official file sheets with the NHL and see, yep, that guy was on the bench. He was only here for these games. The set tag or the COA says this is when they was here. All right, if there's a few marks on it, okay, he took warm-ups. Any issues or problems you think with that, or is that pretty line up pretty well?
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, to me, on bench worn versus warm up worn versus game worn, and sometimes the Sharks bunch them all into one. Like during the year of the finals, the one time they made it, they had a bunch of jerseys tagged as game worn, but they were only worn during warm-ups. And especially during the playoff runs that year, they had the playoff jerseys, and they were clearly, these guys never played, but they were in warm-ups, and they were tagged that way. Rather, more important than the terms, I think, is the disclosure on it. When you buy a goalie jersey, as you said, it's easy to look at the NHL game logs, figure out the guy played. Same thing with the AHL logs and ECHL and most college teams. It's not that hard to do. And, it's a combination of disclosure of when and how the jersey was used / worn. And then if that's not given to you, doing your homework and looking it up and figuring out. So I'm not as worried about the terms as actual complete disclosure. I know we get into a lot of arguments about exactly what to call it. And I know where you're going with this on the next one. So I'll.
And that's, I guess, part of it is that disclosure. When I've picked up jersey, whatever, and then down the road sell them. I always research the crap out of them, so I can say, oh yeah, it was this many goals, this many assists. Especially because it's Blues jerseys, if they wore a different one, and here's the dates it was worn, here's these things. If I've got pictures, I drop as much information as possible, so the next person, because I enjoy doing that, next person doesn't have to. If I just drop it out there, we go, yep, Blue certificate says this. Can you trust that? Yeah, maybe. It just depends. More of the modern stuff, yeah, fine. Older ones, less so. But if I, again, like I said, first thing I go is NHL sheets and look at those and see what happened. Okay, he had this many fights or whatever, is break all that down, because that, I think, also helps and sometimes sell the jerseys. Ooh, these things happened in there. So use those resources. They're all out there. They're open to the public and they're free. Just use them. Take your time. And if you don't, ask one of your friends. All of us have had people reach out and say, hey, can you help me photo match this? Do you think this looks whatever? Use the groups. We're all willing to help with that stuff. Let's see. How about, some of these terms get intermixed. Game issued / player issued. Those get thrown around a lot, and that's anything with issued in it comes usually comes with fights. Or at least in a lot of the groups that I've seen, there's a lot of debate of, well, how do you know this was really issued to the player? Was it blank before? Because some people send them off to the team customizer and gets it done for whoever. Well, did it really belong to this guy? And it makes it more difficult if these jerseys don't have set stamps in them.
Sure. I think a game issued jersey is something that has a set tag that came directly from the team. You know, the player issue thing gets tricky because a lot of times people try to say player issue on something that never was even owned by the team or lettered by the team, and suddenly they make it where it's authentic. And that's an authentic jersey. It's not a game issued or a team issued jersey because it has no reference to the team. That's how I look at it. If it's a game issued jersey, it comes tagged and or with an LOA from a team direct out of the locker room from the equipment people. Otherwise, it's just authentic, in my opinion.
And even for teams that do not issue LOAs or have tagging, I'm thinking like college teams for kids who.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think I'm harping to the NHL level or college. There's a big difference between somebody that bought a jersey that was unlettered, that never came from the organization, and then they try to claim that as, player issued or whatever. Just because they made it authentic doesn't mean that it had any reference to the team. I guess that's my thing. If you're, stuff that comes directly from the team and then gets lettered, that's a little different. But again, it was never intended for the player's use.
Well, yeah, to me, it has to be called issued. It has to come from the team and be prepared by the team for intention of that player to use.
I agree with that 1,000%.
Yeah.
Where I run into trouble is where you see these guys and you see stuff on eBay or in different forums or on different pages where guys have clearly gotten just a blank jersey and made it authentically, sent it to Levy or to whoever does the team lettering, and then they're call it player issued. To me, that's like a fabrication, because that's not really a jersey that was ever intended for that player to use.
Is there any teams that you guys know of, at least NHL level alone? I don't want to jump too far off that just because it's easy to look at those. Is there any NHL team that doesn't use a form of tagging inside? Either in the hem, behind the crest, on the back of the neck, somewhere.
I think the only team that you could look at, in my opinion, one of the teams you'd look at that's kind of iffy on that is the Coyotes. A lot of that stuff is just it looks like somebody scribbled handwritten notes on the inside of those crests. And I know that that's what they do, but that's pretty easy to duplicate without any kind of, if it doesn't have a cert or doesn't whatever, that's not hard to duplicate,
I think they got better tags now.
Yeah, but you've seen all the ones that have popped up on eBay in the last year or so that, are all handwritten, notes on the back of crest that supposedly came from the team. And I know they're good, but you know, that's not really very protected.
No.
But in the case of and again, Paul, I know a lot of I've seen some of the Sharks tagging. Do theirs even on their set stamps on their jerseys? Do they say issued or worn? Because they have even like an expiration date, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yes, typically, and I wish I had one in here.
I should have pulled a picture up. I wasn't thinking about it till just
Yeah,
now.
I should have normally I have a jersey here, but not tonight. It typically says a ID, which would be say Burns dash 88 dash 1 dash 2 dash 3 dash 4, whatever set or jersey it is, then issue and expire. And if it's definitely not worn, it will usually say in parentheses not worn, or sometimes last year or the year before, I can't remember, they had a big tag in the net saying not game worn. It was bloody obnoxious how large it was. And it's like, that's all the tag said, not game worn. There's a lot of issues with the dates they put on them, because I've photo matched many jerseys outside of the dates. And a player like Burns or Thornton, who wears multiple jerseys in a game, Reimer, it's hard sometimes to figure out when to photo match it to which period. And frequently it's outside of the dates that they have on there. They're the current tagging for the Sharks, it's a template that they put in, and then they have the details stuck inside of it, like two different press-on things. And they do pretty good, but they don't always get it right. So,
And I think at least that helps with the issued side of things. So if, as we were debating, as people send it off to get it customized to that player, and it's in there the size the player wears, but there's no set stamp. Yes, it's possible. Like Wade and I saw with the Blues preseason ones last year, those were worn. We saw racks of them, but unless you can photo match that, good luck. But in others, the other issues that I've even bought some from the Blues, the regular set stamp is inside that was for that player. So it was made for them. They either didn't wear it because they were injured, they weren't called up, whatever it was, but at least that was 100% made and ready for that guy, no question. And a lot of times the Blues don't issue certificates for those, but I can at least trust it enough because everything lines up, and the set stamp and at least the ones they use now in the stamp somewhere has the player's number kind of faded into the background. So it makes it easy that everything matches up. So, and Dan, I know you look at a lot of different jerseys. I know you've had your hands on a lot of Hurricanes ones before. What do you see with some of those?
The Hurricanes have the tags. The Penguins have the tags. I've seen the Predators. I've seen them have the tag for the Migrate, but their backup jerseys don't have tags. And they sell their backup jerseys like at their equipment sales. They sometimes don't make it to Migrate, so there's no tagging, no writing in it or nothing. Then sometimes you buy stuff at the equipment sales, there's no LOA or nothing, they just sell it. So the Canes, when you get the Canes, they sell I think the Coyotes now are doing this, when they sell their jerseys at the stadium or the arena through an auction, you get a certificate that comes with the jersey, and it's got a set tag in it. If you buy them at the equipment sale, there's tags, but there's no LOA or a COA. There's nothing. So, but you got to figure out, obviously you got to try to match it. You say the season, but it doesn't. They don't have a log like it says set one. But what is set one worn in? Was it worn in the preseason through a certain date or not? So the matching of jerseys becomes difficult because some teams aren't as thorough as, San Jose. Paul just said San Jose gives you a date, and it might be wrong, but they at least give you a date where it's something you can shoot for. Some people track. I know somebody that track. I know people that track the Penguins when they wear certain jerseys. Migrate has their tracking where you can say, okay, and narrow it down. But photo matching obviously the best way to prove a jersey was worn or not, or if it was a backup worn. But
and I had one a couple of years ago. Had a Ryan Reeves for I don't remember what year it was, but it was an away jersey, and it was as dated as a set one away, but inside the back of the neck was written as backup. Well, I reached out through some people to one of the equipment guys, and that was a travel jersey. They took it as a backup. So if he was in fights, got blood on it, whatever, that was the one he would throw on after the fight. And it even had a handful of repairs and some fight wear. So it looked like he'd fought in one, swapped it out, and then fought in that one too. So even though it was a set one, it was carried the entire year. So yeah, I photo matched it, I think, into basically what their third set would have been for a game or two. Because some of those guys tear up jerseys, you got to have backups.
Right.
And some teams label them okay, some don't.
Right. I think there's still a value thing to it. I think that if it's a backup worn and like Ryan Reeves, I had a Malkin that was a backup worn in one game. That's great. It's worn, but it's backup worn, you know, and it needs to be identified. And the value of that jersey is not the same as a regular season game worn jersey. And I think that's where we run into in this hobby. People are like, well, it's game worn. Dude, he wore it as a backup because he got blood on his other jersey or whatever the case may be. It's not the same as a guy that wore it 10, 11 games. You know, I think that's where we're getting into these issues in our hobby. Is people are trying to skirt the issue of what is worn. Is it, you know, and that's where we're getting these pissing battles, because everybody's trying to maximize the thing, but you're like, dude, that's not it. That's not the gamer. It's a game worn jersey. That means game worn in a game jersey. It was issued to him. Here it is. The equipment manager gave it to him. It's got the set tag. He wears it. You know, it's not a backup. It's not a team issue. Game worn.
So Dan, you mentioned the Penguins.
Yeah.
One thing I like a lot is when you get a Penguins jersey, you get that laminated card, which has
They don't do that anymore.
They don't do that anymore?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Nope.
Do you know, I heard that they had generated the dates when they were doing that card from the Eye in the Sky data.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it. I got a couple cards. It's pretty nice. They're laminated and it tells you when it was. Steve Bell now, he tracks them. I know I go to his website and tells me when he wears them. So I know he's just one guy I know that tracks the Penguins. I'm sure other people do it. You know, they watch the games and when they wear the jerseys. I just go to Steve's website and say, oh, look, that's when they wore how many times they wore the jersey, and I start redoing my research from there, you know, and when a guy trying to find the matches or whatever, you know.
But and again, we're going to keep harping on this through the whole thing is no matter what, do your research. If you're looking to buy one from somebody, if you've got one and how you picked it up, if you're unsure, like Dan, like you said, is the backup Predators jerseys. If they weren't tagged at all.
Oh no, I was pissed at that deal. I was absolutely torqued out of my mind. I traded a game worn jersey for what I thought was a game worn Preds jersey. And I got it, and I'm like, there's no markings. Where's the LOA at it? And then the information starts coming in. I'm like, this is fucking backup worn. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's not a fair trade.
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, well, I'm not trading back. It's gone. I'm like, so I agree. We said earlier, you got to disclose it. You know, that's a different. I'm not saying I wouldn't have done the trade, but you got to disclose what it was, where it was at.
Changes the value.
Yeah, it's a total different trade when you're talking game worn with tagging and backup worn with no tagging. It's a completely different value of a jersey.
Because unless you photo match that to something, that almost falls to an authentic. Because
same thing with preseason jerseys. I mean,
sure.
Total different value as far as something that's that, you know.
But a backup jersey might have one tiny mark on it from one game, and you got to figure it out. You know, I mean, you might get lucky, but
no, the value for a full set worn compared to who knows when they actually threw that on, if actually at all.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm surprised that Migray let them do and again, I don't know how Migray runs some of their rules for that, or if it's the teams can dictate that. But having a backup set that's not marked in any way, that gets kind of questionable too.
I think that falls on the team's responsibility, and maybe even like the equipment staff's responsibility, you know, kind of like those, you know, I'm going to go back to it, like those Blues preseason jerseys from last year. You know, even in conversations with people in that organization, I think all of us had mentioned how hard would it be to go to Office Depot and have a stamp made that you could just press behind the crest of those jerseys that says, Blues preseason 2022, whatever, just to do something to mark the jerseys, especially when you're going to cart them out and try to sell them for not really a premium, but I think the player worn ones unmarked, they're wanting $500 a piece for them. Isn't that worth a $25 investment for a stamp to protect the integrity of those for the collectors? You obviously know who are going to get them, and then it would also take away a lot of complaints long term. How hard is it for the equipment managers to do something like that? Just to mark something at the end of the year. Hey, this was preseason worn, or hey, this was just issued. They want to have collectors and fans buy this stuff, but I personally feel like they have some responsibility to making sure they do it right too.
I don't think they have the heart in it like we have it, though.
No, I agree, but again, I think that they obviously, if they're trying to maximize the profitability of them by selling them and by offering them to fans and collectors, I think the reason that they do tag them in any reason is to do that. So like I said, I just feel like they should do something if they know they're going to put them out for sale.
Well,
Like for example, at your your Predator thing, how nice would that have been if it would have taken an intern or 2 or 3 people that work there, and not very long to go through each one of those jerseys and hit the fight strap with something that just says issued from the Predators.
Right. And so was it after I got it all thing? Was it one of those things where they were going to carry the jersey over, so the equipment manager held on to it, and then the player got traded, and they're like, oh crap, we'll just throw this out here for the equipment sale and get rid of it.
Well, Doc, we ended up grabbing the Sanford were the first prime green jerseys that had ever came out, the Zach Sanfords, because I grabbed those off that rack from the Blues. They were his set 1 jerseys. Well, he got traded, never wore them. They ended up throwing those on there. They had the team set in them. They were going to be his jerseys for opening night, his home and away. That was actually the first 2 prime green Blues game jerseys that anybody saw. And so they threw those on the rack. I guess, again, I think all the teams have some type of responsibility to collectors and I think a lot of them do a great job, and, Migray helps a ton, but in those little circumstances, it's just like, you wish they had somebody there that was a collector, or at least had, took the time to talk to collectors to get stuff right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's some teams get it, some teams don't. And I mean, how they market them, how they deal with any of it. It's no one team does them the same.
No.
And I at times I wish they did, and other times I'm kind of glad they don't, because looking at the pricing of some of the teams and how they do it. So I guess going back to player/team issue, or player/game issued versus team issued. Team issued, I see a lot thrown out there for blanks. The everybody's fighting to get the Mick jerseys now, the Made in Canada Adidas, and they say a lot of people. And again, I'm not throwing everybody in these buckets. A lot of people say these were team issued jerseys, which technically I do feel is correct, because Micks aren't able to be bought. You can't go to Adidas and say, I want to buy a dozen Made in Canada San Jose Sharks jerseys. The team's the only one that can get those. So while I believe that technically is correct, I would say it team owned, because it's not issued to anybody. The team just owned them, and now they've sold them off to whoever, or somebody got them out the back door, whatever you want to say, equipment sale, whatever. But I take a little umbrage with, at least for blank jerseys, calling them or just team issued gets a little fuzzy.
Sure. The only jerseys you could do that with are the Made in Canada Adidas jerseys, because before that it was the wild west. Anybody could get anything,
Yep.
So why not just call them team issued blanks?
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need anything beyond that. And then if you customize it, then, explain that, it's
purchased from the team as a blank jersey, sent to team official customizer, not worn, not given to player, none of that. But, and again, most people in our hobby and in the authentics area, which is also a huge booming market, disclose that up front. My fear is, and just like we've talked with past things with game issue jerseys or the and we'll do an episode on this eventually too, the custom crafted specials and those kind of things, is once it gets into people's hands that either want to be shady or the information wasn't passed on to them, that stuff gets lost and then it gets questionable.
Sure.
Is it the fault of the current owner? Maybe, maybe not. But you do risk getting into some issues there.
Time passes. I mean, you could look, go back to stuff, some of that CCM stuff back into the late 80s, early 90s that was accessible to people. And you start talking about 30 years and who knows, especially if they didn't have set tags in them, I mean, unless you can photo match those, it's anybody's guess, I mean, I know that I've heard people talking, that there's a Shanahan jersey that just closed in Classic, a Blues Shanahan, that I don't think anyone is ever able to match. That thing sold for what, 7-8 grand,
And it's the longer the jerseys are out there and as ownership changes, like I said, and I will say last year at your expo, Wade, I made a trade deal for one of the custom crafted specials I had, but I told the guy, I said, part of this deal is I'm going to write inside the fight strap CC special and date it. And I put my initials. I said, I'm not giving you this without it. He understood completely. He knew the backstory, and doesn't mean that he can't find a way to get that marker out of there.
Sure. But you're one of the good guys.
Right.
And then in the same sense, let's say, 20 years goes down the road and those custom crafted or that marker comes off or whatever, that, or somebody dies or, somebody quits collecting and then next thing you know, their family's selling off stuff. I mean, that stuff can repopulate itself without any fault of anyone or intention. Sure.
So it's, above all else, just do the research. I guess I've gone through most of the big terms and kind of debate on them. The issued one and the player issued, team issued stuff is the hottest thing I think we see. The backup one, I know recently on some of the forum pages or the Facebook pages, there was some back and forth, but I thought that got settled pretty decently without too much hassle. But again, go look at the sheets. If the goalie was on the bench and that jersey's marked that way, especially, I mean, you can usually find warm-up pictures of the guy from that game, hopefully a couple. There's some marks on it. Odds are you're pretty good. And most teams are good at dating their stuff, not all. Again, we talked about it a few minutes ago with stuff being carried over. I had a Jordan Binnington. It was, I think it was a 16-17 or 15-16, something like that. It was early in his time in the Blues organization. He was with the Chicago Wolves at the time. Played one preseason game or a white jersey. But when I bought it, it had a 100th, I think it was a 100th or 50th patch, NHL 100th on it, and may have had even both patches. I'd have to go look at my pictures now. But I happened to, it didn't click with me initially, but looked at the set date. I'm like, wait a minute, that's a year before those patches should be on there. Well, they carried it over because they thought it would again just be some preseason time. So I matched it to a game pre-patch, but it came from the Blues because they'd patched it, them planning on carrying it over. So some of those lesser guys they don't want to make jerseys for, at that point, they decided to just throw these additional patches on them.
Yeah.
I think they patched a bunch of crap just to get rid of the patches too, because I've seen piles of them show up. But in this case, I was able to match it pre-patch and explain what they did, because right the next season they carried that over and needed that. So teams do weird crap all the time, and you constantly hear stories of the trainer grabbed this jersey, threw this on it, or whatever it is. So nothing's ever going to be perfect. Document as much as you can so you can share all those things out there. One other piece of this I kind of wanted to, and before I go, I guess I go on, is there any other terms or things out there you guys think I'm missing or we haven't touched on? No.
Stripping a jersey?
That's
Either-
right. What we're coming to right now is that yes, the besides people going after blank made in Canada team jerseys, the other thing people are doing to get higher name stars are buying issued or in some case game worn ones and stripping them. That I find that several issues with that is one, if let's say it's a guy that only played a few games, if he ever is looking for that jersey or somebody, you're never gonna find it. It's gone.
Yeah.
That's one, and
I sold a Tage Thompson Blues jersey that was worn his rookie year, and I had picked it up at one of the sales, and I just let it go, didn't think much of it, and I know for a fact it got stripped. So like at the end of the day, that one like kind of that now that one bothers me quite a bit. I don't
especially with the contract he signed.
I don't sell a lot, but suddenly this was years ago. I had picked it up and somebody got it from me, and then I found out it was stripped. And as soon as I found out, I was like, oh gosh, because I literally, I mean, I don't sell a lot anyways, but especially a lot of the retros and the reverse retros, like I won't let those go to anybody who I think is even possibly going to consider stripping it, just because they're so rare and like why? I just don't get it. But I mean,
one of the
it's simply a
scariest
segment of the hobby.
Sure. One of the scariest ones I've seen recently, and I will call it a one off because it was hard to pull off, but somebody bought a St. Louis Blues Heritage jersey, number 47, just stripped the name bar to put Krug on it instead. If you look at the inside, the set stamp also it looks correct because it has the 47 in the background. So if anybody, and again, I know the guy I think it was even for sale at one point. If that doesn't get disclosed going forward, everybody thinks that's at least an issue. And I don't know if the jersey had any wear or not. I don't believe it did.
Sure.
But everybody believes that's now a Krug jersey.
If you don't do the research and check the years, absolutely.
Because I think it was a year before Krug was with the team. But if that doesn't click with you, say, oh, you have to get a set stamp. That's it.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of those one-off because everything had to line up just right to make that one work. But are you guys, Dan or Paul, are you guys seeing that much in your areas, hearing about that with San Jose or Dan with all the teams that you are involved with?
I haven't seen too many gamers being stripped from San Jose and turned into other things. I've seen a lot of blank jerseys being customized without the tagging. And, it might be now, the current Adidas pricing is very, I think it's high from the Sharks for even their game issued. I mean, you can see it on the Sharks Pro Shop. And I think the cheapest game issued you can get is 400 right now.
We're looking at that before the show, but yeah, that's a lot to turn around and then get customized to somebody else.
Because customized can be a couple $100 to do it right. If you're gonna do it right.
But I know when some of the retros and the reverse retros issued, people were getting them stripped and turning them into higher level players. And one, it gets rid of guys that were less. And I mean, that's a pricey investment, period. And some people feel that's the only way they can get one for themselves with the player they want. But I just hate when they hit the market at $500, $600, $700 or more.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be disclosed. That's the honesty part.
And we had touched on this a little bit before the show, Paul. And one of the things you mentioned is don't be taking set stamps out of them, especially ones like Migray or the Blues have their sticker on. The Sharks have theirs that have a serial number that references back or has the player's name on it. Mm-hmm. So then at least you can say, yes, this was stripped. Who's here? This is who it belonged to originally. Here's who I had it made into. So there's a continuity there, and it's a full disclosure.
Yeah. The other thing, I've altered a few jerseys, not NHL, but college jerseys, and I actually marked that inside the fight strap. That there was a weird situation at Michigan where a club set of jerseys came out, which were identical to the regular season jerseys. And they didn't come with name bars, but and there were a couple other minor differences on them, but they had the CCHA patch on them, which was shocking because the club team didn't play there. So, I have a few of those jerseys and I've had name bars added, but in all those I've added an annotation inside the fight strap, which I mean, because there's no set tags on them or anything. But as for NHL ones and stuff, even with the tagging, I would like to see something marked inside the fight strap too, saying altered or originally.
Be nice.
Yeah, originally this player. Not everyone will do that, but
And you can't count on teams like the Blues with their holograms. You can go look up the number; it tells you who it is. You can't count on that database being there forever. We've seen that in past years with teams that have done that, and now it's all in the wind. But yeah, marking those, like you said, marking them in a fight strap, marking them behind the crest, doing something to alert people, hey, yes, this has been altered or changed in some way, so it goes through the hobby and doesn't get mislabeled or misrepresented.
Yep.
But boy, when something gets misrepresented or lies happen, we hear about it fast. Funny how
Right.
social media will do that.
Yeah.
But it's again, our debate was pretty civil because we're all, I think, pretty like-minded with how this works. I don't know that everybody is, and I think I hope to see some interesting comments once this is posted. If people listen to this and don't agree or feel that we're out of line, put it out there. I mean, we're just four guys that have been in the hobby for all different amounts of years. We may not get this 100% right. We're not saying that what we say tonight is the standard going forward. No, but it's what we feel and it's what we see. We see the mistakes getting made. We see the non-disclosures or the people trying to pass stuff off with either fake wear or, oh yeah, it was originally this guy and this happened. Because we've seen weird crap with equipment. One guy uses some other player's stick, but you can photo matching it to the first guy using it because he grabbed it off the bench or he likes his pattern better, whatever it is. Crap like that happens.
Sure.
Yeah.
Doesn't really happen with jerseys because it's got it works a little bit different, but stuff like that happens all the time. But you've got to do your research, and if you find it, disclose it going forward. And if things look shady, ask other people. Say, hey, this is what I see. Here's the facts that I have. What do you think? That's how we keep the hobby honest the best we can and growing and people's confidence in it.
Yeah.
Because
It's
when you
hard,
get teams doing shady crap or backdoor deals or people recustomizing things to try and make more money, then it gets ugly, but we seem to get those people shut out of the hobby pretty fast too. Thank God. Any other things like this and you guys want to cover? Any thoughts we didn't touch on or I missed? Any teams that you think really do labeling bad that you've seen?
It seems like they're getting better. I mean, it seems like I think I agree with Wade. The Howies were, man, with just right in the back of the crest. That was like, man, but I think they're getting better.
Yeah.
Um,
It wasn't even a uniform. That was I guess the biggest thing I laughed about it. It looked like somebody like literally was just like scraping at them. It wasn't like there was nice handwriting or it was like straight or like any kind of like, that was just the part of to me that looked funny on them was like, it wasn't like somebody put some effort into marking them like, nicely. It was like they were rushing through every one of them.
right.
And that's just me being picky, of course. So as a collector, you're like, oh man,
I can't think of anybody that's not using some type of
something
tag
anymore.
I really think more and more teams are coming to realize how much money is in this.
There, yeah.
And if they put some more effort into it and market them better and make them available to,
I think that's why they're selling for more money too. I mean,
Yeah.
the prices keep going up on this stuff. I mean, if you're a hobbyist and you're a collector, I think across the board, it's kind of hard to, like I think we talk about blue stuff, I remember sometimes the off season last sale, you could get some deals from $250, $300, $400 jerseys. I mean, that ain't happening now. You know?
And like we've talked in past shows, is the marketing with the text-based auctions, the websites post them out there. Um, uh, the
The
certain
forums have
teams,
grown. I mean,
yeah,
Facebook's, our Facebook pages have grown. You know, how many people are like, oh, where do you bid on a Colorado jersey, or where do you bid on a Blues jersey, or, and people send that information out, and that just continues to grow that pool of bidders. And obviously you're going to get some deeper pockets and continue to grow the hobby.
you got fans. I mean, no matter where they live, you may not like the team that's near you, and your teams across the country or in Canada. That's whose jerseys you want. So
Sure.
yeah, growing that global audience makes you more money, and I think the teams continue to realize that. I know, Paul, you said San Jose does a lot of in person selling during games and that, but they also throw them online, so it's kind of that somewhat balance. And I know not all of them show up there, but they at least give options or give you the ability to reach out and say, "Hey, I'm looking for this one. Where have you got it?" Because I don't know of any teams that don't market online in some fashion. They don't
I don't think
always
the
hit
Coyotes
their
do.
sites immediately, but I don't think there's many.
Panthers aren't. They took them back from Fanatics, and they're just in the team store.
You can buy some. I was actually looking at their site. You can buy online from them now again.
Oh, did
They
they
at least
finally
have their
fix
own
that?
store now. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
Did the Coyotes update theirs? Because they were another one that was doing in-game auctions.
Really?
Yeah, they got rid of. They moved away from Detroit Hockey Company, and like 2 years ago, I think it was. And the only way you get one is be in the arena. At least the Canes do theirs online, where anybody can go online and bid on it. Um,
Imagine being an Islanders fan. I mean, you can't even.
you can't
Yeah.
find a jersey.
Like the old Minnesota Wild. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think most teams wait to the end of the season, like the Wings and stuff like that. I think wait to the end of the season, but
And that's fine. I mean, if they want to wait till then and not have the hassle during the season, that's fine. I know, was it Calgary just 3 weeks ago, month ago?
yeah,
Maybe not even that long ago, did their online
they dump
sale of all that stuff and did in person as well.
Yeah.
their players are dumped and they're gone.
Yeah.
They have some crazy email thing, and it's just they're gone.
And
So
they've
you
recently
understand
done a clear out sale of everything that's left over for 75 to 175 bucks Canadian. And
Wow.
I'm not sure if those are tagged or not. That's
We're gonna get a flood of jerseys here in like 2 years when they stop doing Adidas. So
Oh, it's crazy.
Yep.
They-
Well,
you
we
know,
saw it with Reebok that year that they were switching the summer sales. They had all that Reebok stuff just dumped super cheap.
yeah,
Interesting.
I think all the team issues and all that stuff is gonna be out there.
Interesting to see that's probably a podcast for another day, but who's taking that over?
That's the hard question because it seems like everybody that you would think about has done it, other than, or they're all owned somehow tied to the other ownership wise or something else.
Here's the scary one. I'm going to throw it out there right now, probably for another podcast. Fanatics has such deep pockets. What holds them back from buying somebody who can produce quality NHL jerseys and then just doing Fanatic branding? It's kind of scary to think about, but why can't they buy a company that has the ability to produce pro jerseys? I mean, if you look at baseball cards, they just bought Topps so that they could do that.
Not honestly, nothing.
Yeah.
God, I hope not, because I think you'll
Just
see
throwing it out there.
if that hypothetically, if that happens, you'll see a huge downturn in the market because
Crazy.
part of the deal is they'll try to make it where they sell it all.
Absolutely.
And we see what a wreck that was for some of the teams they did. Before we get out of here, Wade, you want to plug a little thing coming up in just about a little less than a month.
Yeah, the 22nd and 23rd in Collinsville, right outside of St. Louis, we're having our second Game Used Expo. Got over 20 tables set up right now. Should be a really fun event. Everybody's been to a baseball card show, and the one thing that, and Doc, you've been there, the one thing I try to make it is I want this to be about the community as much as I do about anything else. So, a lot of times you got people just displaying stuff, a lot of buying, selling, and trading. You have people obviously dealing and selling, but it's a lot of fun just to, in my opinion, I wanted to make it different than going to, if you're a game used collector and you go to a baseball card show, an autograph event, you walk in and you may find a couple jerseys somewhere hidden around the room, or a couple sticks or a couple bats or a couple whatever, but nothing really geared towards what we collect. So I think for me, the part of the fun is bringing together people that collect what we collect and enjoy the hobby, and developing relationships with people that you may only know from Facebook or from a previous forum, or whatever. And I hope that I'm trying to grow it beyond just St. Louis. Obviously, we're in the middle of the country, and clearly that's my focus of my collection. But I'd like to see it continue to grow and get some more East Coast and West Coast people, and
We had some guys
center of
down
the
from
country.
Detroit last year.
Yeah, yeah. So we got people coming again from. I think I've got some Chicago people coming down. I think we have again some people from coming in from the East Coast, and I just want to keep growing it. I just like to bring it together, and it's a 2-day event, and stop by and see us. And there's a lot of really cool displays, and you may see stuff you've never seen before, or learn something about jerseys that you didn't know, or find out about custom crafted stuff, or find out about tagging on jerseys you haven't seen, or vintage stuff, and just enjoy the weekend with us.
And again, as I always push, it's all about camaraderie. I mean, you've talked to people via chat or made deals, never met them in person.
No,
Just
for
come
sure.
put a name with a face.
I always give everybody free pizza on Saturday.
It's always good.
No, that to me, that's the fun part. The one thing, if I have the room, I'm going to do it again. In the middle of the room, if you remember, Doc, I set up just a couple tables in the middle of the room. That was, I kind of wanted it to be just a gathering area.
Well, it was.
Where,
We
hey,
laid
there's
jerseys out
pizza
with
out there,
people.
there's water,
Yep.
come, sit around, or, I kind of joke, and I guess I'm kind of a big softy, but a couple times I stopped in the middle of the thing. I looked around, and everybody was engaged in a conversation or a chat or looking at stuff with other people. And to me, that's what it's all about. To make people be passionate about stuff that we're passionate about. Obviously, doing your podcast, which is amazing, which we're doing a podcast episode at the event. If that's still possible, I hope. And just come out and join us, and get to know some people that are like-minded and enjoy jerseys and collecting and the hobby.
And you'll not find many people hiding behind their tables. They're usually out front, sharing stories, explaining stuff. It is a lot of fun. I unfortunately can only be there one day due to both of my kids being in a play that same weekend, but we'll be there all day. Saturday, we'll record the podcast in the afternoon and it'll be a big podcast, and I can't wait to do the show. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I'm really excited to have everybody, and thanks for letting me plug it here.
Of course, we're
if
going to
anybody
keep
has any
growing.
questions, it's gameusedexpo.com. There's also the page on Facebook, or find me. God, I think I'm everywhere. But I'm always available for questions and whatever. But again, it's jerseys, it's sticks, it's equipment. I have some baseball people that set up, and they had a blast. I don't really close the door on anything. I just wanted to make it more about a little different than regular shows.
So yeah, if you've got some time, come try. I mean, St. Louis is easy to travel to. Collinsville's 20 minutes from downtown St. Louis. So
you can see the arch.
There's a Blues game at 3:00 that day. They're playing in Edmonton, so maybe we could find a way to get it streamed into the room or something.
So I'm going to try to get a TV in there on Saturday. I'm going to try to get a TV in the room. That's my game plan right now. Trying to get that figured out with the hotel. I hope you guys can hear my dog snoring.
I wonder what that rumbling was. I pick it up just a little bit. That adds to the podcast even more.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to get the game. I'm going to get the game on. And then, like last year after the event, we all went and had dinner together, and, people did some trades outside of the show. The funny part was a lot of people came for the first one on Saturday and then came back with stuff the next day, which I thought was pretty neat. So,
and even if you're listening to this and you don't even own a jersey, come look at stuff,
come
check
see
it out.
Stuff.
I mean, it's again, we just want to welcome everybody to the hobby and help you understand what it is.
My niece's boyfriend is not a hobbyist. He's a big hockey fan. He's a big sports fan. And they came and helped last year, and they're going to come again. And he has been asking me about it, because he's like, man, I saw so much cool stuff, and to me that was neat. He's like, I've never seen some of the stuff, or to be able to touch it and look at it, whether it was the equipment or the jerseys or any of this stuff. And then just to see the knowledge that's in that room is incredible. People that are really hobbyists and longtime collectors, and you can learn so much. And who knows, you may pick up your first one or you may pick up your 500th jersey, but I pretty much guarantee you're gonna have a good time.
They always are. Well, we got a nice Midwest one now. We'll keep growing it. Well, gentlemen, it's another fantastic evening of game worn discussion. We have now made it to double digits with your help. Thank you very much. We will be back next week for another episode of Dirty Laundry Game Worn Hockey Podcast. And I promise the logo is almost done. My sister is sending me a couple tease pieces now, so hopefully by next week or the week after it's completed. We've had a couple tweaks to it, so it is almost there. It'll look even better and have a nice backdrop. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a fantastic evening.
Good night,
You
everybody.
too, man. Take care, bro.
Night. Thank you.